Today's Legends Panel project features former MLB umpire and all-around legendary human being, Larry Young. Larry, thank you so much for being with us today.
Wow.
We're gonna jump into these questions, and if you think of anything and you want to go off course, feel free.
Okay.
So the first question is, what role did interscholastic sports play in your life growing up?
Well, looking back, it seems like I was always going from one sport to another. And I'm grateful for that because I was always busy in junior high and high school, and sports was the main part of my life, and afforded me great friends. I still see my friend from first grade 60 some years later, and we still talk about the sports that we participated in. So sports were always an integral part of my life growing up.
What made you decide to become an umpire?
Well, I started, and I thought this was unusual, but apparently it's not, because I've heard several other people say it, that I started at a young age. I was 13 years old when I started umpiring baseball. I'm from a small town in northern Illinois, and we had a little league program. And one of the days, they had a day game where all of the parents were working, and in those days, all the umpires were volunteers. They were fathers that someone would literally drag out of the stands to umpire. So I was a spectator at one of these games, and no one showed up to umpire. So at 13, I was called in to umpire my very first game. I liked it. It was a challenge. I enjoyed playing. I played, as long as I could, but the umpiring was just something that got in my blood, and I think that's what happens to a lot of us. Officiating gets into your blood. So I would ride my bike the mile to the baseball field with an outside chest protector on my back like a turtle, and shin guards on, and I often wonder what my neighbors thought about that kind of weird young kid riding his bike with all this equipment on. But yeah, I started at a young age, and I see a lot of young people now starting at a young age, which is great.
When did you realize that officiating was really something that you wanted to do for the rest of your life?
Actually, basketball was a sport that I really enjoyed, and I thought that I was hoping that would be my my future. I did a lot of basketball at a young age, and once I got my driver's license at 16 years old, I was in business. I had a small business going on with baseball, basketball, football. Anytime, any place, anywhere, I would officiate, and I just thought that this is something that I could hopefully do for a living. There's a NBA basketball referee, very famous NBA basketball referee, Jake O'Donnell, who I emulated and wanted to be like, because he was an NBA basketball referee, and at the same time at those days was an American League baseball umpire. So I said, I want to be like Jake, and didn't work out quite that way, but got half of it in with Major League Baseball. But excuse me, at this young age, I felt that this would be a thing that I'd like to do with my life.
What is your most memorable moment of your umpiring career on the diamond?
I think there are two. My very first game in the major leagues and my very first World Series. Both were huge moments. The first game, getting into baseball, going to umpire school, going through the minor leagues, which was a long process. And finally getting to the major leagues was something that is very difficult to do. 300 people going umpire schools every year. The top 20 usually get jobs in the low minor leagues, and then progressing through the minor leagues was very, very tough. So making that step, that last step, and getting to the major leagues was a huge thing for us, my family, myself. A lot of sacrifices along the way, and just getting there for that first game and walking on that field in Old Comiskey Park in Chicago was a huge, huge thing. But then later on, working in 1996, I worked my first World Series, the Yankees in Atlanta, and this was a culmination of things that of my career, starting as a young umpire, establishing myself, getting through playoffs, and then eventually to the World Series, and that was a great thing, and my family was there for that. So those two things I think are a tie for the biggest thing I have on the field.
I can imagine those are both amazing memories for sure. And I'm sure throughout your career you've had those moments of how did I get here? I mean, it's got to feel surreal to walk
It was
on
very
this.
exactly
Field.
it was surreal. Yeah, exactly.
That's amazing. So when it comes to umpiring, what's your most memorable experience as it relates to that off of the diamond?
Well, I think that off the diamond, I had an opportunity to teach at the umpire schools, and I found I had a niche there. I enjoyed teaching off the field, still do. This is my 40th year with Big League Baseball, and I still teach off the field. I'm in charge of international baseball, so I've traveled all over the world conducting clinics. And I found that this is something I really enjoy. I enjoy the international flavor of baseball. I've enjoyed seeing it grow. The European umpires 10 years ago were struggling, where the level of baseball was improving greatly. We had coaches and managers that came over to instruct from the playing side, but really nothing from the umpire side. So I'm really happy to see that the umpiring in many, many different continents, many countries have improved over the years. Credit that a lot to Gus Rodriguez of the International Baseball Federation, Softball and Baseball Federation, and myself have conducted clinics all over the world, and it's just gratifying to see that change to a positive.
What would you tell a newer umpire who is about to quit officiating to keep them in the game?
I thought about that, and I don't know if I would try to talk a young umpire out of quitting officiating, because I think it has to be something that one enjoys, one is dedicated to, and if it's not in someone's blood, it probably is best to move on, because officiating is not for everyone. It's for those of us that are in it, we kind of find it hard to believe that someone doesn't want to do what we're doing because we enjoy it so much. But if a newer official is turned off by the negativities of this profession, and there are a lot, whether it's usually it's the fans, and usually it's getting yelled at. That's not something that's pleasant. That's not something that someone might be able to get used to. So I would think I would ask that person that, what's the problem? And if it is a problem that can be solved, yeah. But if not, they probably should move on. I'll give you an example of someone that I suggested that they move on. And this was a veteran official who did not get an assignment that he thought that it was a state assignment that he thought was coming. And he ended up in the hospital. long story short, ended up in the hospital, and that was just too much for me. And I suggested that he move on from officiating because that's not worth it. So I'm not sure I would try to talk somebody out of it if they felt that they had to move on. They probably should move on.
How important is it to have mentors as an umpire? And what words of wisdom do you have for individuals who serve in the role of mentor?
I think it's hugely important in this business to have mentors. It's just using the sport of baseball. My mentor was Richie Garcia in Major League Baseball, and he helped me so much. And if I didn't have his help, it either would have taken me longer to get to the point where I became, or I wouldn't have gotten there at all. The unselfishness that he showed and the patience that he showed with a young umpire and teaching me the right way to do things on and off the field was huge. And as I said, it probably would have taken me longer if I was just floundering out there on my own. And I think that transcends to every level, high school officiating too. It's very important that someone with experience and that has been through it shares that. And I think it's our responsibility as veteran umpires to share what we went through. I know a lot of people just want to do their games, they don't want to teach, that's okay. But you can still offer bits of wisdom before and after a game. So being a mentor is hugely important, and I think it's our responsibility to pass that along to younger umpires and officials.
What was a failure you had in officiating that you look back at and realize that actually helped you long term?
During the minor leagues, when I was coming up, I thought I had been to winter ball for 3 seasons in Puerto Rico, and that's kind of a training ground. And I thought things were going well. And at the end of my second, I guess, tenure there, I was expecting to get Major League spring training. Well, I didn't. And one of the reasons I didn't was because I had gained some weight and wasn't mobile enough for my supervisor that was over there. So it was a wake-up call to me, and I did something about it. I think that if you're not progressing the way that you feel that you should, and that's common in officiating. I think everyone thinks that they're ready to officiate at state level right away, and they get discouraged that they're not progressing. I think that's very common in officiating. But if you can find a cause why you're not, and sometimes your expectations are much higher, and you need to go. You need more experience at the level that you're in. So for me, it was a wake-up call, and thankfully I did something about it and was able to move on and achieve the goals.
What do you find the most rewarding about officiating?
I think most Jerry Markbright told me one time, and he's mentioned this many times, that all of his friends are officials. Well, not all of my friends are officials, but a vast majority of my friends are officials. And I think that this association with other officials has been great. You know, you sit around and you tell the war stories, or the war stories kind of sometimes get embellished, and we have a good time telling those. But I also think that this camaraderie that you go into a game, and it's kind of the officials against against the world, against the fans and against everybody else, and you stick together. And if you have a partner that you can count on and that's going to be there when problems arise and you can solve those problems, that's huge. And then you become friends along the line, and you meet a lot of different people, and a lot of people from all different walks of life that decided to do this. Mostly avocation for most of us, but the vocation as well. It's just a great feeling to be among others that have that same goal in officiating.
It is so special. I try to explain it to people who are kind of on the outside of officiating about that family, that unique family that exists within officiating. And it really is special because unless you're around it, you can't really understand it. So you have people that you commiserate with, that you celebrate with, and they really do become your sounding boards and your support. So that's a wonderful answer, because I think that's probably my favorite thing about it too. What would you say, and I know that this has probably happened, what would you say to the fan in the third row of a youth baseball game who is driving younger umpires away?
It kind of hits home because my 9-year-old grandson is playing baseball right now, and I see really young umpires, and I see volunteer adult umpires that are getting abused from these fans. Our team, I have to say, our team is pretty good. Our parents are, I don't think I've ever heard any of our parents scream at the umpire. But sometimes when you get into traveling tournaments and it gets a little more intense, it shouldn't. It should be fun, and that's been my mantra all along. To my grandson, just have fun. But the parents, I think, sometimes take it to another level. And I've been tempted many times. I've kept my mouth shut, but I've been tempted many times to say, "Hey, we have a shortage of umpires. You think you can do better? Please get out there and do it." And I've never said it. I don't know if I can keep my mouth shut for the next 8 or 10 years, or with hopefully that my grandson will be involved. But that's what I'm thinking. I said, if you can do better, we'd love to have you out there.
If you could tell your younger self to do something differently with regard to officiating, what would that be?
I thought about that as well. And it's hard for me to think of something that I would do differently. So I guess that's a good thing. I know that I mentioned before where the weight issue, I've fought weight all my life, and that's always been an issue. And to be an effective official, I think one has to be in some kind of shape. But I really can't think of anything that I would have done differently. It's been such a pleasant, mostly, and that's hard to say, I know, in this business, because people look at it as negative, much like law enforcement officials. I think we probably have the same answer. They're looked upon negatively, but they enjoy their life. And this has been a great life, and I don't think I would have done anything differently.
So I know you're still very active within the world of baseball umpiring, but when did you realize it was time to step off the diamond as an active umpire and go ahead and retire?
Well, I think that's a difficult question. Some people say they know when it's time to retire. I wasn't ready to retire, but physically I couldn't do it anymore, because my knees were to use a non-medical term, my knees were shot. They were bone on bone. The thing about officiating in general, I think a lot of basketball officials have running up and down the court on hard surface. Baseball umpires have joints that they use repeatedly over and over and over, up and down, up and down, up and down, the same joints. And knees, backs, and necks are the maladies of baseball umpires. and I know basketball has the same problems. So for me, it was a matter of physically, I wasn't able to keep going. I'm glad that I was able to contribute off the field. So I've been a supervisor now for 16 years and getting close to the end of that. But I think that I think that one will know when it's time to retire. When you dread going to the ballpark, or you dread going to the gym to do the game, it's time to move on. Yeah, it's not something you want to keep doing if you dread doing it.
Okay, and Larry, this is the final question, and it's more to help me than anything else. So you're going to be my salesman here. You have one opportunity to convince people to become officials. What do you tell them?
So there's a need. There's a need for athletic officials. If you want to stay with the game, if you want to contribute, if you want to give back to youth, we welcome you with open arms. And please try it. If you like it, join us. If you don't like it, please don't yell at us in the stands. So it's something that there is a need, and we would welcome new people.
All right, Larry Young, thank you so much for your time. And on behalf of the National Federation and the tens of thousands of baseball umpires and the hundreds of thousands of officials across the country in all of our sports, we thank you for your wisdom and thank you for paying it forward to officials at the high school level. You know, this is where so many of the legends got their start, and it's been really great to see so many of you willing to give back to high school officials. So thank you for everything. And you're a true ambassador to baseball, but also to the world of officiating. So thank you for that. And looking forward to speaking with you more and seeing you in the future.
I am as well, Dan, and I'm glad that we are finally getting back to some semblance of normalcy. And I hope to see you. And thank you.